Takopi's Original Sin, episode 6, the final episode. Uh, no, yeah, great episode if I had to say the least. This is absolute cinema P. Uh, but to kick things off, the episode starts off with Shizuka, and she was overhearing, seeing her parents arguing about like getting a divorce, getting separated, all this other stuff. And that's when she kind of looked up to the sky and made a wish, which that wish was that her dad wouldn't leave them or her, that school food tasted good, that there was no bullies, all this other stuff, like everything that went wrong in her life previously before Takopi, or like during Takopi also. And that's essentially why she in the first episode said she doesn't believe in magic, because when she wished upon the star that none of these things would happen, and then they every single thing that she wished wouldn't happen still ended up happening. It kind of broke her as a kid, or like as a person, that there is no real magic. There's the reality is much harder, and it's just something you have to go through. So she learned that early on, which pretty bad, but also like love how it kind of brought back that point of her not believing in magic. And then she wonders if like that's actually what she truly wanted, or if what she wanted was something else, which we can kind of refer that because how lonely she is, and how much Chappie meant to her, and basically how she just kind of took in Takopi without no questions. It You could almost summarize that, or like come to the conclusion that what she wanted all along when she made that wish was that she would have a friend that would be there for her, or somebody to show kind of like a support, to be kind of like a rock that she can rely on. But we have we come back, and it's Takopi talking to Naoki or Asuma, and what they're kind of like talking about, like why they returned there. And pretty much Asuma drops down some like pretty heavy stuff on Takopi, like how his family is pretty much going into ruin. The mother, after hearing about like her son being involved in possibly a murder case, probably did not take it too well. Upon that, added unnecessary stress on the already stressful stuff that she was dealing with, running a hospital by herself because the father wasn't around. And now, on top of that, now the kid is a possible murder. The mom pretty much got bedridden from all the stress, and the father came back, but it's not looking likely like they would keep the place. And also the brother who bought him in his new glasses lost his job as well. So right now the Asuma family is going through a lot. Like that family's cracking, like almost like Takopi inadvertently kind of ruined Asuma's future per se. And we he even though that's happening, Takopi kind of takes it upon himself to kind of try to figure out his own thoughts, and he asks Asuma like, how can Shizuku be good and bad at the same time, right? And how can Marina be bad and good at the same time as well? And Asuma just lets him know, people are not just black and white. People can be both good and bad at the same time. Doesn't take away from who they are. It's just who they are. Like, people have their bad sides, people have their good sides. And he basically, Asuma or Naoki just kind of thanked them for calling him smart, and how he wished they could go back to when it was just the three of them, because that was when he was having like his most fun. And we have him ask that could be something important, like, hey, if you are able to ever go back in time, can you remind my former self that it's alright to have a big fight with your brother every once in a while? Kind of like going back to how his family dynamic was was ruined because of his miscommunication or his lack of communication with his brother, and how if he would have just opened up to him, started being more vulnerable with his brother, how things could have probably gone differently. And then they said their him and Takopi said their goodbyes. Then there's like some times passing, and we see that Shizuka's been considered missing. So now we know what happened, kind of like in the previous timeline of how maybe Shizuka didn't actually like go away. Maybe she or like get out of town with somebody she knew. She actually fled town for a while, but now she comes back and she spots Takopi, and Takopi's trying to talk to her, try to get to understand her a bit better, and she just would not have it. She's too hurt, so and she keeps relying on telling him like, what am I gonna do about everything? What am I gonna do about Chappie? What am I gonna do about my mom being a whore? What am I gonna do about Asuma? What am I gonna do being alone? I have nobody to come to. I have nobody. I have nothing. What can I possibly do? And Takopi kind of lets her get out all her frustrations, lets her let out her anger and everything she's been building up till now, and just kind of takes it, whether it's abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse during this, and he's just like, at the end of the time, he actually holds her hand and tells her like, listen, I'm sorry, I don't understand. I don't understand you. I didn't try to understand you. And this is what has led to this moment, this breakdown of yours. And he pretty much just kind of finally, for the first time, was trying to see who Shizuka was, and he wasn't trying to make Shizuka become something she wasn't. So, like, Shizuka finally felt seen for the first time. And it wasn't by, like, her mother or anybody she actually, or, like, anybody in her close life before Takopi. Takopi was the first one to actually acknowledge who she was, and he actually tried to see who and understand her for the first time, which kind of makes her bowl her eyes out. Which is just the whole lead up to this is so beautiful, like how the direction moves, the animation fluidity, everything is just amazing. I cannot stress enough that this episode has to be watched like once or twice, maybe three times, just how beautiful it is. And it was so refreshing that Shizuka was finally able to cry, because you could tell that this kid has has been through the worst, but throughout the entire series, she had never like actually shed tears. Like, she would get beaten up, she would get her stuff stolen and this and that, but she would get her dog taken away and nothing. It's almost like she had given up on life, and cause there was like nothing there for her. But like, because Takopi was finally that one thing, or that one person that was able to be the rock she needed in this time. Now that Chappie's gone, she was finally able to feel emotion, be able to let go and accept everything. So she cried, and it was so powerful. Then there's a nice little montage once again of just Shuska and Takopi living out a few days, see having her, and it's just so nice to see this little slice of life that after Shizuka was finally done crying, they were able to have moments together. So at the end of the day, Takopi finally decides that there is a way for them to get a sense of normalcy, get their life back, and there is one last chance they have at making things right between him and Marina and him and Shizuka, and be able to give her that smile he always wanted her to get to have. And he pretty much has to go back in time, but at the cost of his own life. And he basically, before he goes back, there's Shizuka's telling them like, don't go, I'll have nobody if you go. Like, you are the last thing that's holding me here. And Takopi's like, don't worry, I'm gonna make things right. And then it's like, don't. And then the transition of her letting go of Takopi in the there her and Taku to her and Takopi back when they first took the initial picture, and she was like, I don't know what I'm doing here. I was sure I was doing something, and you just see like Shizuka's going through her life, and Takopi's kind of talking as a narrator at this point. Like, his presence is there, but he can't really change much. Like, he can just kind of tell or have thoughts projected into Shizuka, and also like Marina then starts beating on her again, and it almost seems like it's just gonna go back to how it was, but one of those beatings, like a notebook drops out, and they see Takopi was drawn by Shizuka, and they both don't know who it is, or like they sort of know who it is, like, but they're like, he looks kind of dummy, and then they start kind of connecting as to how they viewed Takopi, and it almost seemed like Takopi was that last link that they needed to like hold hold hands, kind of like how Takopi wanted and become friends. He was that missing link, or like that they needed, and it was just heartwarming, like just seeing them afterwards just cry as like I'm assuming like they pretty much got reminded of Takopi, even though they haven't really met him. Like the previous like uh versions of them kind of had like their minds intertwined a bit to kind of drop hints that this is somebody that's important to both of them, or it kind of undid the rewinding of the Takopi did on the first time. And now it was amazing because Takopi's last wish was that they both of them end up growing up and not be alone anymore. And they did. They grew up, and they were actually really good friends growing up this time. So I just really love the overall message of Takopi's original sin, which is that the hurt others, and it's just a cycle that keeps repeating until some something is done where you either talk it out, or you actually have an understanding of one another. And that's just powerful. Like, the only way to actually stop the hurt is to understand how you're hurting somebody, and understand how you hurting them is going to cause them to hurt somebody else. And that's really a powerful messaging. And also, of course, there's the whole happiness is bred when you talk to people. So Shizuka didn't end up being alone, because this time she ended up actually getting to understand Marina, and Marina got to understand her. So like, there was that share bond of like, oh, you are suffering just the same way I'm suffering, and that it that is how you build a certain type of bond as well. Like, through suffering you build connections as well. So overall, like, Takopi's just delved into so many like good uh topics, and very dark themed topics, but I am forever happy with how this last episode was, and how this entire anime production was. So overall, I think the this episode is a 10 out of 10, and overall the series is like a 9.5.